To have my sister friends here, my homegirls, and my friends from way back when. We are going to talk a little bit about what is happening today with the political situation that we find ourselves in, especially the last two conventions that you all were able to witness. We're going to talk about mentorship, and then, of course, we mostly want to talk about your book. So getting started, first of all, I want to introduce my guest, Donna Brazile.
She already got it going.
Minyon and Leah Daughtry. And not here of the Colored Girls is Yolanda Caraway. They are the Colored Girls. They wrote a book called The Colored Girls Who Considered Politics. They have gotten an award from the NAACP for nonfiction literary award-winning, so I was very excited about that when they got nominated. So they didn't just write a book, but they've been all over the country. I mean, I just got dizzy watching all of the various book signings. As a matter of fact, how many book signings did you all actually do?
God, it was a lot.
We had an opportunity to travel to college campuses, to community events. We also had an opportunity to present at the Congressional Black Caucus. It was a wonderful gathering of friends, of colleagues, and of course, young people who quite honestly didn't know our story, our journey in American politics. So it really was a very important milestone in each of our lives.
Yeah.
And I was able to sneak in there and do a book signing at the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center. And it was really great. The community got a chance. So, and that still is people still talking about it. So let's just get with it. One of the reasons this show came about just for you guys is that I have a habit of saying there's nothing new under the sun. We all know what that means. My mother used to say it to me all the time. And with one of our mentees that we all share and love, Tamika Mallory, when she was going through a very rough time, I kept saying to her, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just your turn. Mm-hmm. You got to go through the fire to get where you're going. It's what I call God preparing you for the next level. You just don't step up there. You have to go through something. And mentorship has been very important in my life, and I know it has been in your life. So you women have not only been mentored by your family and your friends, but you've also been mentored by some icons in our history. I know Reverend Willie Bearer was one of your favorite mentors, Tamika, and Jesse Jackson, and your father, first of all, Leah, Reverend Daughtry, and Coretta Scott King, and Betty Shabazz, and Shirley Chisholm. And so can you all talk a little bit about how being mentored by these women impacted you, and then also talk about how you then paid it forward in terms of what you all do, and if you don't mind sharing some of the women that you have mentored and the impact of that and how important it is in what we're doing.
So who wants to start? I guess
you can start.
In my mouth, I will.
Okay.
Well, for me, I think I was born and raised in Chicago. So, most people, they know that Chicago is a very activist town. I was fortunate enough to meet Reverend Barrow when I was actually in corporate America. And she convinced me that I needed to leave my good paying job and come work for her, for the movement, as she called it. You need to give back to your community. And just to fast forward, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me the opportunity to meet the Cora Berries of the world, to meet Dr. Angelo, to meet Dr. Shabazz, and all of those women you just named. But what it also showed me was a life of public service. And they gave selflessly. They gave to our community. They gave to their children. They gave to their families. But, and it ingrained in us a pay it forward moment. Leah uses this phrase all the time: when you get to the table, just don't sit at the table for yourself, but swing the door wide open. And so every time we go in the door, and this is the beauty and the hardship of a Black woman, when you go in the door, you have to look at everybody. You have to see everybody. And many times when we're at these tables, we only are the only ones. Thank God it's no more. But many times when we were at the table, we had to see somebody else other than ourselves. And so, I've mentored, as you know, Cora, I've mentored generations of children, and I try to take time. And I was saying this to Donna the other day, even though you get tired, but you try to take time to listen to them, because you can't fuss at them if you don't listen to them. And they have such great and wonderful ideas. They come to it through a different generation, a different era than we did. And so I'm learning from them, and hopefully I'm giving back to them. And it's a joy and a pleasure. And sometimes it's like, please don't call me today. Let me relax.
I agree with
I
that,
love
Minyon.
them.
Mhm. I was on the show, Tamika was on the show last week, and, you know, I was saying that mentoring is not a process where they sit there and say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Sometimes I have to hold the phone away from my ear because all the hollering and screaming. I mean, you have to have a good memory, and you have to be willing to listen and relate to them, you know, based on what you already know as a young person. And I know, Donna, you have a lot of people that you have mentored that you're still mentoring. And one of your mentors was also, I want to bring her in, is Congressman Eleanor Holmes Norton. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I grew up in the segregated South at a time the country was changing. Throughout my childhood, I saw men and women of valor who were standing up against the Jim Crow forces in my own community. And so in addition to my parents and the community leaders and the church leaders, watching Ruby Bridges, hearing her story, and she told it over and over and over again. But it wasn't until I moved to Washington, D.C., that I was able to connect the dots. When Coretta Scott King, who I met during my college years, invited me to a meeting and later offered me an opportunity to work on the King Holiday Bill. And Cora, as you well know, that's when I first met you. It was during that part of my journey that Mrs. King told Eleanor Holmes Norton, Eleanor, who was involved in SNCC, Eleanor, who had traveled to Mississippi, represented Fannie Lou Hamer in the 1964 convention, Eleanor, who was a lawyer, chastised Mrs. King for hiring somebody so young. And so I went to Eleanor in the only way in which I knew how and said, who are you? Basically, I said, who the hell are you to say I'm too young when you were young, when all of you, I mean, Dr. King was 26 when he led the Montgomery bus cop. So I in addition to working on the King Holiday, I got an opportunity in working for the 20th anniversary of the historic march. We've all been involved in those historic marches. I got a chance to meet practically every civil rights leader and all of Dr. King's associates. And I also want to lift up Daughtry Height. Daughtry Height was someone who, when she called you and she would say, Miss Brazile, and I would say, Dr. Height, and she would give us an assignment. And before you could say yes or no, she hung up the phone.
Yes,
so
never know goodbye.
You had to get it done. You had to get it done. And so the Black Family Reunion on the Mall, we had an opportunity. But the way in which I mentor through campaigns, of course, through organizing events, activism, and as an educator, a part-time educator now for over 25 years at Georgetown, University of Maryland, College Park, where I had a chance to work with another person who mentored me, Professor Ron Walters, who was instrumental in changing the rules in the Democratic Party. And of course, now that I'm at Howard University, I've been there for several years, working under the leadership of Cobra King, Gwendolyn King. It's been an honor to serve, but more importantly, it's been an honor to have the kind of deep friendships that we have formed over the years as the Bank of Justice continue to take deposits from those who are interested in being activists.
I'm going to put a pin in the Bank of Justice. We're going to get back to that. I left you for the last, Leah, because your father was a freedom fighter, and you had the honor and the pleasure of all the greats coming through your home, the Stokely Carmichaels and all the rest of them. So you got mentored. In your book, you talked about you had so much Blackness going in your life, you thought you'd go see what the other half looked like when you went over to, what was it, Dartmouth? Tell us about it. You're muted. You're muted. There you go. She's still muted. What's going on? We can't hear her.
No, I don't think we can. Might be our connection.
Yeah, you might have to go out and come back in.
Unmute.
It's muted. I don't know what's happening.
She's not muted. She's
It could be. You might need to go out and come back in. Can you hear us? Yeah.
Well, we're going to wait until she fixes that while we keep going. I particularly want to hear a lot about her because every time you mention a freedom fighter, Leah will tell you, well, they used to eat at my house. Oh, they were friends with my father. They were this, they were that. I mean, I really envy that. You know, obviously, Dr. Hyde was one of my mentors. You know, she used to call me the manager. And that's because I had a habit of wherever I show up, I start trying to run things. And she wrote her a book, To the Manager. But people like her were very instrumental in my life. And I was very, very grown. But these women, Donna tells the story of how we met during the Martin Luther King holiday march. Well, we had 2 marches. And after the second march, it was that year that they made the holiday. Are you back, Leah? She's still not back.
That's all right.
Okay, so I think that the issue of mentoring has intensified. Before it was kind of like, it was just being.
The host, can we ask the host to unmute her to make sure that she's unmuted?
Ashley?
We can make sure that she's unmuted from the host.
I can see it on the screen.
Try it now, Lee. Miss Daughtry.
Okay, hello?
Yeah, there you are.
Ah, there we are. Thank you.
Mr. Host.
All right, I'm back.
Okay,
Technology.
yeah. So tell us about your house at your daddy's house. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was raised in an activist faith household in Brooklyn, New York. And my dad eventually became the chair of the National Black United Front after many years of struggle and coalition building with the other African-American folks in our community. And so because of that, our church became a way station, and our home became a way station for all of the organizing, all of the freedom fighters. If you were interested in anything Black, you had to come by the house of the Lord at some point. And so we were host to everybody from Julian Bond, John Lewis, Stokely Carmichael was one of our regular participants. Whenever he was in the States, he was either at our house or at the church. To, Winnie Mandela, Joshua Nkomo. So I got a great education as I was growing up around what it meant to be African, what it meant to be Pan-African, what it meant to be a Black nationalist. And that's how we were raised, with everybody in our life was some kind of freedom fighter. So when I got ready to go to college, my dad said, well, you already Black, and there's nothing else we can teach you about, or anybody can teach you about being Black. So go to whatever school you want to go to. And if you're not already Black, going to HBCU is not going to make you Black. So do what you want to do. And I looked at everything and was pursued by everybody. And I wound up in the hills of New Hampshire at Dartmouth College, which I loved. But it gave me my growing up experience and being surrounded by Betty Shabazz, who was always with us, Dr. Hyde, all of these people. You just learn so much just from sitting and listening to their stories and to listen to them strategize. Willie Barrow strategized about Revlon when we were boycotting Revlon. Jesse Jackson, hearing them and serving them, whether it was they needed a piece of paper and a pencil, or they needed you to hold their pocketbook, or they needed some coffee, or baby, can you make me some chicken from the kitchen? Whatever it was, hearing them, you heard the love in their voices for our people. The concern in their voices, and you saw the sacrifices that they made every single day to ensure that our communities and our people were moving forward. And I would just feel so fortunate to have had that close-up experience with them in my formative years. And then so when I got grown, as folks say, when I got grown, they were still part of the orbit, but then I was able to work with them in a different kind of way and be guided by them as I was forging my own career path. And I think one of the highlights for me besides the 2 conventions and having them all come, being able to make sure that they were taken care of at the 2 Democratic conventions that I ran, was also producing the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington.
Mhm.
And so many of them showed up, and you could see the light in John Lewis's eyes as he remembered, and he stood on those same steps and delivered his speech for the 50th anniversary, this time with 3 presidents of the United States. It was just a singular moment. And so I try to carry that forward in the work that I do, in my faith work and in the political work that I do. And I got a bunch of kids, as I call them, who find their way to my telephone, used to find their way to my house. They probably been in my house more than Don and Minyon been in my house.
That's for sure.
Just hear what's happening in their lives and in their careers, and what's driving them and what's pushing them, and key decision points that they're at, and just listening and being a sounding board. And sometimes you're the one that say, now why in the ham sandwich are you doing that?
Mhm.
And sometimes you're the one to say, you can do it. You've got the skills and the gifts and the talents. Go, girl, don't let nobody hold you back. Don't be afraid. Step out there. And we're right behind you all the way. It's just for all of us who are child free.
Mhm.
It is a wonderful, empowering experience. And I'm so grateful to be able to play those kinds of roles in their lives.
You know, I'm thinking, listening to you all and thinking about my own experience. And a lot of us were mentored by people because we were there. We were in the situation and they opened up doors for us. But I've noticed in this world that we're in now, it's more intentional than it used to be. It used to be just because you were there, you could hold the purse, you could bring the chicken, you could open the door. But now it's not, I wouldn't say formalized, but it's more intentional, purposeful. For instance, I think about this organization that we're all a part of that's not really an organization, but it is, because we all gather once a week, and sometimes, depending on the situation, 2 or 3 times a week, organization called Win with Women. Mm-hmm. And it has a young woman, Joteka, Eddie, heading it up. But the age group ranges from 21 to 84. Mm-hmm. An intergenerational group of women that just lifts my heart up. I mean, being on that phone, about 200 women, like we all be together tomorrow evening, and we are doing some phenomenal things. We don't have a mission statement. We don't have 501c3. We don't have any of that. We just get together, and we're avoiding that. But if there was ever an example of a mentoring situation, although I think mentoring goes both ways, because I'm learning a lot from these young people, but they are so interested in hearing from us, and that to me speaks well for the future. Because now these young women, these women on this TV or on this screen with me are my juniors, by the way. I'm the old person in the group, you know. So I won't. Don't think that they are the level below me in terms of age group. And then there's all these other young women. It's like I told Tamika one time. She said, we were on the show, and she said, this was a funny story. I want to tell you this right quick. When she was going through the worst, and we all know what that was about, she said, and I didn't know this until she said it the other day, that at one point I said to her, I wish I could just get in your body so you would know that you're going to get through this, that this is going to be one of the best things that ever happened to you. When you look back on it, it's getting you somewhere. She said that when she got off the phone, she said, I'm not going to talk to her for a while because she's insensitive.
She call you insensitive?
That's what she did.
You told her she was going to get through it?
Yeah, she just thought I was insensitive. I didn't understand. How could I say that to her? But then she turned and said she now hears herself because she has, all of us see the growth in her. Yes, and now she's ended up in that situation. And she said she can hear herself saying to these young people all of the things that we have said to her. So the intentionality of mentoring is really, really going to really save our people. I'm so, after being on this call for over a month with these young women, I'm ready to sit on the porch because they've got this and they're together. So that's very important. But you women have played you talk about being outside of the system, but then you also are big change agents inside of the system. You spoke briefly, Leah, about the last two conventions. What you were in the last two conventions for the convention goers at the conference right now, you were the CEO of the last Barack Obama convention and of the Hillary convention. Mm-hmm. Minyon, you were one of the Super Six inside Hillary Clinton insiders. You were the interim director of the DNC. You guys was running this stuff. Matter of fact, you ran it so much that it scared me. And after the convention, every evening we'd go to a hotel and there was something called Winding Down. Was that the name?
The Wind Down.
The Wind Down. And that's where we'd sit and drink, of course, his name's champagne, Thomas, and eat a lot of good food and talk. And I said to them the first night, I said, look, too many. Y'all don't look like America. Y'all running the convention. I'm looking, all these Black women coming up on stage. I said, y'all got to back up a little bit. This is not good, because they were running it. And so this is something that most people don't know, that convention and those people were being run by our people, by the women on this, right here on this screen. But at the same time, you had little to do with what happened in the last 2 weeks. I would love to hear from you the difference. I mean, we know it's virtual. Got that part. So skipping over that part, how is that different? Is it what kind of impact? What would you have done differently? How do you look at that? And I know you're sitting there saying, oh, no, they didn't. Oh, I'm glad they did that. So tell me what your thoughts were in the last 2 weeks as the insiders.
Well, I'll tell you, Cora, you mentioned in that story, it is pretty funny because Donna and I did a show a couple weeks ago with Marsha Fudge, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, who was the convention chair in 2016, and former Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake, who was the convention secretary.
See, all them Black women. See?
All Black women. Mm-hmm. And Minyon wasn't on that. Minyon was the sergeant at arms or the doorkeeper or one of those. And so there was a night at the convention when the first night, Marsha, Stephanie, Donna, and I, and Minyon, we were all at the podium together, and we said, oh my goodness, it's too many Black people. We got to go find some white people.
No, Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters came up on the stage. Angela Bassett, Sheila Jackson Lee, here come Alexis Herman, and we looked around and we're like, oh my God, where are the white people? Where are the white people? It wasn't like we were freaking out, but that was a moment, I believe, that we saw ourselves for the first time as principals, as leaders, and we looked out and we saw this sea of Black and white, but for the first time, I think, had Fannie Lou Hamer or Barbara Jordan, who was the first Black to deliver a keynote speaker, had Shirley Chisholm saw that moment with all of these Black female delegates, a large contingent, and Jesse Jackson, of course. We cannot leave Reverend Jackson out, because when you think about all of the changes that have taken place over the last 30 years of the Democratic Party, Reverend Jackson played an extremely important role. All three of us are on the DNC Rules Committee, and it is our solemn obligation, as Leah said, or Minyon earlier, that when we got into the room, we kept the door open for others to show up. And so I didn't miss being there, because a part of me believe that we will always be there, because that door is going to remain open. No one will ever take us out of our places, our chairs, our seats. And you know what? These young people, they want more than the chair and the table. They want to write the menu. And that's why I'm into them. They want to write the menu. Mm-hmm. And our people, Minyon sent me the Black Agenda 2020. I had to print it out, Cora, to read it. I'm like, oh my God. The issues, the way that they are framing it, it calls upon us to change the narrative. The narrative that we had in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, clearly, they empowered us. They moved us. But the narrative for the 21st century is a narrative that not only tells our story, but it also gives us an opportunity to shift, to make a huge shift in the kind of lives that we want to lead in this country.
Yeah, that's really
to your question that Leah was about to answer a little bit. Then
I never answer questions. Y'all know that.
Hear the answer to it, but I want to go back right before we get to the answer to that question. The thing about Hillary's convention, because that was Hillary's convention.
Mhm.
16.
And I am unapologetic about all the Black women that showed up, because we also showed up at the polls.
Mhm.
So I
We
feel-
did that.
Thank you. So
94%,
yeah,
94%.
94%. So we showed up afterwards too. We just didn't show up on the podium. We showed up at the polls. So that was our thank you.
And
Anyway,
you know, real quick, we were at one of those sessions they have during the Black Caucus, one of those many sessions, and I was intergenerational, and so I spoke, and then right after me, Tamika spoke. She was to my right, and so she spoke on behalf, and she was much different Tamika than she is now, but she spoke on behalf of the millennials or whatever they called themselves at that time, and how they, you know, their whole issue with Hillary and how they didn't worry about Trump because they, you know, had been through slavery. I took the microphone back. First of all, I said, ain't none of y'all been through no damn slavery. Your mama ain't been through no slavery. They mama ain't been through no slavery. So y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. Number one. And if y'all just stop worrying about the white woman and look at all the Black women around her, that ought to tell you something. Y'all just use your brain. So, I mean, that was very, very frustrating to me. So I want to move from that as well as all the same thing, but I keep calling you all the color girls, and you know, your book is Color Girls Who Consider Politics. I'm gonna ask the question. I know the answer, but the people at the convention doesn't know the answer. Mr. Steve doesn't know the answer. Where did color girls come from? You can tell it, Donna.
Well, it started in the 1988 political cycle in a Dukakis campaign. As you know, after the primary ends, there's a general election team. I was on the general election team. Minyon was on the general election team. Our headquarters was in Boston, and the Dukakis
I got there first because Gephardt lost first.
Of course, yeah. I was in the Gephardt. I was a deputy campaign manager, and I was there first. I got there in April. Minyon came much later because of Reverend Jackson practically almost won the nomination that year. As Reverend Barrow said, we never thought we would get here, but we got there. And up in Boston, the campaign decided, and I don't think they understood the optics, but they decided to put the quote unquote senior level staffers on one floor and the remaining staffers on other floors. Now, although we were senior level, they made a distinction without a difference. And so that evening, while they went off for cocktails around 5 o'clock, we were all on the 9th floor, and we saw this huge conference room, and we said, perfect. So we got in, we redecorated the place and opened it up for like maybe 6, 7, 8 staffers. And then we put the color girls, we shall not be moved. It was the Ida B. Wells, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, and
She done got like Tamika. She done dressed that story up so pretty. Got to the campaign, Donna was on strike. So I'm calling her. You know how you checking in like a good color girl. You check in. You say, hey, Donna, where are you? I'm here. She said, I'm on strike. So, you know, instantly I go, well, how you strike on a campaign? You don't strike. What are you striking for? But she was striking on principle. So that's when I knew I was getting ready to team up with some crazy woman or somebody that's got deep values. So I'm striking because they won't give me my money for the CBC, for the dinner. I asked them for $10,000 and they won't give me my money. So until they give me my money, I ain't coming back to the campaign. So I'm saying to myself, now, do I sit out or wait for her to come back, or do I beg her to come back? I'm trying to figure out my role. This is my first big national campaign after leaving Reverend. I'm his representative and I'm going on strike. So I'm saying to myself, okay, Donna, you think you're going to come back soon? I'm trying to figure out when she's coming back.
The white staffers said to me, look, it's a slush fund. The Black vote's going to come out for us. I said, we don't know that. We need to make sure that the Black caucus know that Dukakis is with us. And so they refused to give me 10 grand. And I said, fine, I'm on strike. I'm going home. When y'all decide y'all want to treat Black people with respect, I'll come back to work. And they decided to write the check. Dukakis called me, and I went back to work.
And
did I behave anymore, Minyon?
No.
No, matter of fact, I had to call you and tell you to come home.
No, but it was a good campaign. So that's when we did our second boycott.
Yeah, well, we old Black women, we do. I guess that's why I'm so glad Leah's in the team. Now I got somebody who can pray for me, and I just sort of chill out. I still think Minyon has gotten more radical with age, and Leah too. Now I just have to play like I'm a white woman and have somebody carry my pocketbook. They're so radical. I heard them.
Yeah, Minyon is kind of radicalized.
They've gotten radical. I know.
Been radical. I know how to pivot. Y'all just go in all the time. I pivot when I have to. Like, I told the white people I can't go across the bridge with 2 more white people in this election. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Can't do it. But Minyon is somebody that always sends out these nice little, feel good things and sends you songs and all of that. And then you think, okay, well, she's like, well, we shall overcome. We're kumbaya. The next thing you know, she sends a zinger. Bam. So you don't know which
Cora,
direction.
you know what Leah did? I think it was Leah who told the campaign staff, they said, well, who are y'all for? And she said, Israel, anybody Black. I said, oh my God, look at these sisters.
And we say, listen, who's Biden going to bring across that bridge with him? We can't carry a white woman with us.
We can't carry her.
And no strength.
No, that's true.
Got no strength.
Because one of the people called me and asked me, they said, are you saying that you won't vote for him if he doesn't have a Black woman? I said, I'm not saying that.
That's right.
I'm saying that I won't work for him. I won't raise money for him because the people that he is going to be catering to when he does the white woman are the people that need to do the work and give the money. That's what I'm saying. Simple as that.
And they have raised a historic amount of money. Mm-hmm. They've raised a historic amount of money since Kamala Harris. The team is energized. Look, the ads look better. The tweets look better. The posting look better. I mean, people are fired up and ready to vote, which is what we knew. If they picked a Black woman, we would really not just show up, but we will turn out more people. So we're at work. We're still working now.
Yeah, we are in the brothers, getting the energy in the brothers. We want them.
The brothers are bad.
So let's talk, the brothers too. We don't want to leave you guys out, Mr. Steve. But I have some mentees that are men. I have a whole center of mentees. That's a whole different group of kids over there that I'm radicalized. And I think once my funders find out that that's what's going on, but that's been going on for years and they all know about it. That's what I just woke up one morning and said, that's what you're actually doing is radicalizing these babies. So by the time they get to their 20s, they're big already. They know who they are. But, when I think about you guys, I think about the Bank of Justice. I know that's a part of your book, but it also is something that was activated inside politics, but it's also something you do in the streets. Y'all want to talk about where that came from? I know I was a beneficiary of it. I know when I would go to the Democratic conventions with no credentials, no nothing, all I had to do was call Donna or Minyon or somebody, and the Bank of Justice would just open up for all the Black people who otherwise would not have an opportunity to matriculate in a way that everybody else was. But that's just one thing. But you guys talk about what the Bank of Justice is, when it got started, and what is its purpose, and what is the status of it today. Leah. You were the CEO, Leah.
But the Bank of Justice predates me being a CEO. So you all want to talk about the beginning, and then I'll pull in the back.
Well, it actually started at a convention. It started when we were at, I think it was Bill Clinton's convention. And I found myself in this room with all like CBC members and everybody coming to us looking for credentials. And I'm saying to myself, well, we just working here. We don't have credentials. But then that's when I realized we're going to have a separate operation for our people because we are not the ones that have access to these credentials. And we really have to have somebody that's going to be sensitive enough to know that a lot of people will show up just because we're involved, and they do like Cora. They come because they know they're going to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. But I think Leah took it to another level in terms of, and it might sound like, okay, you just have access to a convention. But let me just tell you how that's so important that we understand. I mean, we were deliberate and intentional about inviting people to come to the convention because we knew that was the only way we could reward them. Just imagine the older lady that's out there that used to be out there doing door knocking, and all of a sudden Esther shows up at the credential and she got a little packet with her name on it. that Leah done set aside because they are workers and they're going to continue to work. And that's really the embodiment of it. It was those who weren't normally invited to conventions, they got invited because we felt like they had a place in the room. And then Leah took it up.
It is true. And Leah, before you get to the convention, we didn't just use it at the convention.
Yes, right.
But we used it in the case of Bill Clinton. I want to go back to Bill Clinton. We used it also once when Bill Clinton won in 1992, and I was involved in the presidential parade. And my role was to make sure I had as many of those black bands from the South. I got the Southern University Band, the Grambling Band, the A&T Band, and the FAMU Band. And then I even got Shaw High School in Washington, D.C. But then I called Cora. I said, Cora, I got a bunch of tickets for the parade route. Do you know, can you get them over the bridge? Can we make sure the kids in Southeast DC can come to the inaugural? This is about making sure our people, the people who are always working, but never get acknowledged, never get any invites. And
That's
no,
right.
They didn't have $75 for a seat or $50. They were not donors. But the Bank of Justice started when Dr. King in that 63, I Have a Dream. Everybody quotes the dream, which is important because that's when, that's when Mahalia said, Martin, tell them about that dream. But
tell them about that dream.
Who said the Bank of Justice. Mm-hmm. We had been given a promissory note.
That's right.
And it was time for us to get a deposit. And so that has been part of who we are. Bill Lynch was part of the Bank of Justice in the Kerry campaign in 2004. And yes, we pushed for Barack Obama to be keynote speaker. And that's because Hillary Clinton called Minyon, and Minyon called me. We met him one day and we're like, hey, why not? Okay. I mean, Minyon from Chicago, she knew more than me, but I always tell people I got to know him because of Minyon. And so the Bank of Justice, by the time we got to Denver in 2008, oh my God, we hit pay dirt. I had people coming from Louisiana. I know you got me 2 tickets. Now, as a delegate, I only get 1 ticket plus an honorary guest pass, but I ended up with 50. Thank you, Leah. Bank of Justice. Louisianians were in the house. And Leah, when she was chair of the convention, all I had to do was get in the room with an empty purse, and she had my name on it. Boom. It worked.
CEO of the last Barack Obama convention and the Hillary convention. CEO of a black woman.
CEO, historic convention, and the last one.
Things.
And look, the last one, Cora. Leah put out so much what I call depository notes that Aretha Franklin had her own suite, and I still couldn't figure out how did Aretha get her own suite.
Well, she was a donor.
Okay. Yeah, but she had a lot of tickets, man. Aretha had not only her backup singers, I think she had a whole band there.
She was the queen, and the queen gets what she wants.
Well,
oh, we loved Aretha.
But I think Donna's right. It's a way for us to ensure that all of the people that we know do the work, the real work, are able to sit at the table and be in the room at the moment of reward and jubilation. During Bill Clinton's inaugural, I worked with Ron Brown. We set up a whole separate Black inaugural committee to deal with tickets, we had our own ball, we had our own reception because folk were coming and they needed to be taken care of. And Ron Brown says, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have this with Kent Amos. We set up a whole operation to take care of Black folk. But I remember when I worked on that convention in 1992, it was my first convention, and it was in New York. And Ron Brown was the chair of the DNC, Alexis Herman was the CEO, and David Dinkins was the mayor of the city of New York. It was the first Black convention.
And Marion Barry showed up fresh out of jail.
Yes.
It did.
It was everything. But I remember the people who raised me, all of the Black nationalists, the real ranking radicals of the day, were calling for tickets. I was like, y'all want to go to the convention? They supported me working for the party because that meant they had people inside. But it never occurred to me that they would want to be at the convention. But they called, and I have this wonderful picture of G2 Wiusi Big Black. His name was G2PUC, Les Campbell. He led the movement for community control of schools in Brooklyn, New York in the late 70s. I have a picture of him at convention with his credentials. He and his brother, Joe Mashariki, who runs Black Vets for Social Justice. And they were so happy to be there. They'd never been in that setting. They'd been working their entire life to make sure that the ideals of this country lived up to this promise, but they never had an opportunity to see it all unfold. And I just was it stuck in my mind how overjoyed they were to be able to participate in that process, and it stuck with me. So when I got to 2008 and 2016, and by this time we were the colored girls, I was like, okay, yes, there was a Bank of Justice where we used to have to scramble to get things. I am the Bank of Justice. So
yes, you are.
Let's just get it up. And when we were doing the credential counts, like Minyon's packet, Donna's packet, Yolanda's packet, Tina's packet, because they will take care of all the people that I forget, who don't get to me, whatever, because I'm off being the CEO. So they will take care of our people and make sure people are in the room. So while I could do the formal levers of Minyon was the sergeant at arms, and this one, Maxine was the something, and or the Sheila Jackson, everybody on the stage, and Karen Carter Peterson running the floor operation from Louisiana, Alice Huffman in California trying to help us keep up with the trouble in California. I knew that we had Bank of Justice the convention so that our people were in the room. And that just means the world to them. And it's just, I can't tell you how humbling an experience it is to be able to have the opportunity to make that happen.
There's nothing more gratifying to me is when I open doors and help my people. I mean, it means everything. Everything. It really does.
Cora, because of the size of the arena, if you remember, I had an extra sky suite.
Yes, you did.
I could put some of the luminaries so they didn't have to wander the arena to find a place to sit. They had some place to go every night. There was food, there was beverages, and they could relax themselves and watch.
Ginger ale.
But when I think about the Bank of Justice, I also think about it outside of the structure of the conventions. I remember very clearly. I'm a Hillary Clinton person. I'm unabashedly about that. I love me some Hillary Clinton. If it wasn't for Hillary Clinton, I probably wouldn't have a Southeast Tennessee Learning Center. Because when I was First Lady and she was First Lady, I called up to the White House. I was going to do nothing but unveil a sign. I called Minyon and said, "Can you get the First Lady to come?" She showed up. Helped me unveil that sign. I didn't have 2 dimes to rub together, but after she showed up, we went off. I mean,
that story. Let me please tell that story.
Oh, God.
Cora calls and says she's got this vision. She wants to develop this, Tennessee Learning Center. So, me, I'm a dreamer. Oh, that's fabulous. She said, but I need to take you over there so you can see it. I said, oh, okay. Now I'm here at the White House, and so I'm allowing Cora to come pick me up, take me over there. So it's getting to be dusk. And I'm like, okay, so where are we going? So we riding across the bridge. And then she takes me up on like a little bit of hill, look like. And then she parks the car and she says, can't you see it? Look, it's rolling all over the place. And I'm going to myself, I don't see nothing but dirt, and it's dark, and we in Southeast, and I'm wondering what she's talking about, and she wants somebody to go back to the White House and convince them that I can see a center. It was like she had it just laid out in her head. I'm like, do you have a picture at least? She didn't even have a picture to show.
That's called vision.
Vision, honey. It didn't take Hillary Clinton but 2 seconds to say, yes, I'll go. And I'm like, okay, it's dirt, but yes. And she went over to that dirt.
Yeah, so she ran for president. I stuck with her all the way through. So Barack won. This is the first election. And that's fine. I mean, once she conceded and we had a black man running, I was all in, but that didn't count when it was after he had won and it was time for the parade. And I don't really care about myself, but I have all these kids. I want to go to the parade.
Right.
So I called up to the inaugural office and say, this is Cora Masters Berry. I'd like to have some tickets for my kids. somebody did not put the phone on hold, and they put the phone down and said, "This is Cora Mastersbury. She wants tickets for her kids." And somebody said, "Well, she need to call Hillary Clinton." I was like, dang. And they, so then I called Minyon. By this time I'm in tears. Then next thing I know, I get a call back from Donna. Donna said, "How many tickets you want?" And this is another bank adjustment. I told her, my kids got tickets. You know where they sat? They sat in the stands where the senators and the governors, and they looked up and there was all these little black kids sitting up there with all the VIPs. That was the bank of justice.
Yes. Yes.
So that goes everywhere.
And Cora, I'll never forget because Minyon called me. And when Minyon told me, I called Brandon Neal.
Yeah.
And I called Brandon and I said, "I'm coming over there with an empty pocketbook. And Cora needs something in this pocketbook. And I'm not going to open it up until I bring it to Cora." And Cora, remember, the pocketbook was full. And I didn't have to call twice. Because I told him, fill up this pocketbook.
Goes to making sure you have people in there that are like-minded, got value system, because whoever
Brandon Neal. Brandon
they
Neal.
put you on hold. Didn't
Leah, one of the things that to this point we're making that you talk about in the book is the inside-outside strategy. This is a perfect example. Explain that to us, please.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, and one of the things I learned from the strugglers was that, you have to have people everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the fastest and most secure route to victory is having people who are arguing for you inside and arguing for you outside. And that we shouldn't draw distinctions or make either one the enemy, as long as we got the same goal. And as long as we are working together toward the same goal, everybody play your position.
Right.
My father's a big sports person. He's like, play your position. If your position is executive assistant to the mayor, play your position. If you outside with a sign, play your position. As long as we are all keeping the main thing, and keeping our eyes on the prize, on the focus, then there is room and really almost a necessity to have inside folk and have outside folk. The danger comes when they're not talking to each other.
Yeah.
They are working at cross purposes. But if they are aligned on vision and aligned on values, then it's much simpler to get to an end that we all were expecting, that we all were struggling for, and that is the best for our people.
So, Cora, can I tell the story that really kind of symbolizes this? So Donna was campaign manager for Al Gore. And Donna she took John Lewis to heart. She loved good trouble. So this particular time, she got in good trouble over one of our revered leaders, Colin Powell. So you would think that she would run over to Dorothy Heights' office and hide in a bunker. She ran to the White House to hide in a bunker till they finished all of the hullabaloo about Donna and said all this about this revered leader, Colin Powell.
Well, you know what I said? I said George Bush would rather take pictures with black children than feed them.
No,
I essentially said all of the black people around him are tokens because they're not standing up for black people and black children.
She named Colin Powell.
I did name him. I did.
Now at that time Colin Powell was bigger than life.
Yeah.
So they go. She didn't have an appointment, so they had to wave her in. So she's sitting on the couch eating M&Ms like she ain't got nothing else to do. I'm looking at TV. Well, all this stuff is breaking. So I said, Donna, you got to call Colin Powell. She said, well, I can't call Colin Powell. I said, oh, yeah, we can call Colin Powell. We can just call him from Signal. We can call him from the White House. We'll get him on the line. He'll think it's Bill Clinton. And so we called Signal, got him on the line. But I tell you, that to me was such a lesson in grace, what he said to her. And the fact that us two black kids had the courage, the White House, to unravel a situation inside, outside, what Leah is talking about, because I could have just told Wave she didn't have no appointment, she can't come in, because I knew she was all up in a flurry right now. What did I say to you, Donna? It was so beautiful. I never forgot that moment, though.
I never forgot it because Colin Powell, what he taught me actually stayed with me for about 15 years. He said, there are times when you know what is right, And there are times when you have to act upon it, but there are times you just have to just put your head down and get the work done, but you know what's right. And he was such a good man to me. Not only did Al Gore accept me back as campaign manager, I never had to cuss nobody out again for the whole campaign. And it was a moment because everybody was working. Colin Powell went publicly and said that we talk and everything's fine. I never had to explain anything. That's inside outside. And that was a moment. But I did hang out in the White House because I had to, boy, they came after me. And I said, well, let me go to the White House. They can't do nothing there.
But Donna, it really is not the first time you have put your foot in your mouth. The people have been coming after you. I had to bring you home from Massachusetts.
Look, sometime I put my foot up other people's asses and they can't get it out. Okay?
Bishop,
it gets stuck.
Bishop, help us, Bishop.
I can't take it. And then I know it was like when I was a little girl, my mom used to say, Donna, shut up, please shut up. Donna, shut up. And now I go on Fox News and just tell them to go to hell.
Oh, yeah, you can do that over there. That's your job. But when you was running campaigns up there with Dukakis and talking about George Bush, and I was like, oh, Lord, they was trying to kill you. Donna said, what can I do?
Didn't like
said,
what they were doing to Willie Horton. I didn't like that Willie Horton stuff. And I didn't like the way they wanted to pick a black man, so I had to tell them what I thought. But as you well know, Cora, I lost my job after that. But that was okay. It was just a job. I'll never forget when I called my mom that night. She said, what did you do? I said, well, I called the president of the United States a racist, a liar, and another word. And my mom said, is that it? I said, yeah. She said, come on home. And Cora had to get me home. I had to get on home. It's all right.
I told her, come home. Get out of there.
Yeah.
And she wrote her book, Cooking with Grease, by the way, so the conventionaires know that's a good book to pick up, Cooking with Grease, Colored Girls Who Consider Politics. These are books that give you the insight on how Black people, Black women fight the battles both inside and out. They've been in places that most of us never dreamed to be in, and they've made a difference. Now, that does not mean that there are not a lot of Black people in places that we never dreamed in and that they don't even care.
Right.
They ain't looking back. They ain't looking over. They're just happy they're there. So they don't count. They may be our color, but they're not our kind. They don't have no bank of justice. They don't have no justice. They're just there for their own self-aggrandizement, and that's just the truth. And of all of these people, they know that me. I'm the one who gets a little crazy. I'm the Black liberation person, the Stokely Carmichael person, and I will tell it. I have a big problem with Black people who don't realize their job is to put out a welcoming mat for Black people to come on with them. As you say, looking on left and side, you can't be sitting there by yourself. And if you are, you have a problem. And we have a lot of those people. So I don't want anybody to listen to this and think that this is necessarily typical. It is important. And we have a lot of people doing it, but we have a lot of people who are not doing it also. And so for those of you who are watching this interview and listening to these women, understand that your responsibility is always make a way for people who need it and people who can make a contribution and people who look like you, but more importantly, people who think like you. Because it's not always about color, it's about what's in your mind. It's about you knowing who you are, where you came from, whose you are, and what responsibility you have to your race. And if all you can think about is what you have for yourself, then you have no place on this earth of any place, for as I'm concerned, that makes a big difference in this world. And so my thing about back to these young women that I'm very enthralled with, women with women. These women know who they are. They know what their responsibilities are. They know that they have to fight the good fight. They know they have a responsibility to each other. And they know recently we have the young women, the WNBA, I'm just going to tell that right quick, young women who have stopped playing basketball, who have stood up for all of the murders and the injustices in our country. And I'm very, very proud of them. But we, as a group of women, are also supporting them, sending letters to people saying to them, thank you so much for supporting them. I'm talking about the front office now. I wrote that letter. Thanked them so much, gave them the history of all the craziness in that league, talked about the white people who did not want them to do anything injustice, and thanked them profusely for supporting our young Black women who are standing on the front line. And I also added, as long as you with them, we with you.
All right.
So Mr. Steve, do you have anything else you want to add as the clock ducks down?
No, it's been wonderful to hear the dialogue. The fellowship is incredible here at RIDE. I think that I know for a fact that the story is told. If you had one person that touched you, if all of you would say one thing, one woman that inspired you, because I heard you talk about Betty Shabazz, what Black woman changed your life? Just name one.
You mean beyond our mothers and fathers?
Right, beyond your mothers, yeah, definitely beyond your mothers and aunts and
Mine would be, without a doubt, Reverend Willie Taplin Barrow. The day I walked into her office, my life changed forever. Mm-hmm.
Mine would be, because my grandmother, Frances, of course, was the one who, I just believe that she knew God, she knew Harriet Tubman, she knew Sojourner Truth, she knew so much about history that she just filled me every day with, I just want knowledge. I just want to know all those people. But Shirley Chisholm, when Shirley convened that National Congress of the National Political Congress of Black Women, I served as executive director, and sitting around that table with not only Reverend Barrow, Addie White, C. Dolores Tucker, Maxine Waters, Eleanor Holmes Norton. I mean, the depth and breadth of the Black women. It was Shirley who, just dared to make a difference. And I love Miss C. That Brooklynite, Mrs. Shirley Chisholm, touched my life.
I'm going to tell you how radical we were. I was growing up. Shirley Chisholm was our congressman, and we thought she wasn't radical enough. So we would go to her events and have rallies outside her events. She was too establishment. That's the people I came from. So,
Yeah.
I think the woman who influenced my life the most was probably Alexis Herman.
Mm-hmm.
Alexis Herman, who I met when she was chief of staff for Ron Brown at the Democratic National Committee. And I didn't know who she was, but she was chief of staff, and she called me in after I had finished one work assignment, and she gave me another. And from that moment, we were just sort of knit together. And so she recognized talent. She pushed me to do things that I probably never would have done. She pushed me into situations that allowed me to grow. She was the first Black CEO of a convention.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for her during that time. And so I got to see how our styles are different. She's a genteel Southerner and I'm a brash.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from her. And eventually she became the nation's 23rd Secretary of Labor. And I was her chief of staff at the U.S. Department of Labor. So she's probably the one that shaped the way that I work and my work ethos and how I think about projects and problems and people and processes. And yeah, she's still the one I call if I got a big career thing and I'm trying to, or a problem. She knows my family. If I'm trying to sort through something and I need a dispatch, because see, they my friends. So they gonna ride and die with me when I want to do the crazy thing, right? That don't make no sense. They be like, yes, let's go. And Alexis would be like, well, wait a minute. That's about the strategy.
Right.
The strategy.
The 1, 2, 3 points. You got 3 things.
I had 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the one for me, I think.
And I think for me, it was a relay race. The first person outside my mother who had a big impact, I was in college. I was pledging Delta. And my responsibility was to greet and escort our guest, who at that time was Barbara Jordan.
Wow.
She was the a Delta buff, obviously, but she was also the president pro tem of the Texas State, the State Senate,
Right.
which her mentor, by the way, was LBJ, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and I escorted her, and you know, I'm a pyramid. I don't know what to say, so I said, "Oh, big sister Jordan, what do you attribute to your success?" We're in the elevator together, student year, and she looked at me and she said, "Well, Cora, I'll tell you. On the day I woke up, this is what she said, and I looked in the mirror and I said, Barbara, you're not going to get anywhere with your looks, so you got to use your brain." And so she said, and you have to use your brain, young lady. And she talked to me, and she would come and mentor us and talk with us. So she was the one that really kind of got me off of the radicals. I was trying to burn people's houses down and stuff like that without Black Power and all that. She kind of calmed me down so I wouldn't go to jail. My mama wouldn't kill me. And then handing it off when I got to be very mature and I was first lady and I went through a lot. And the person who calmed me down, helped me, would not let me get outside of myself was Daughtry Height.
Yeah.
I had withdrawn. I was just tired of everything. I wouldn't come out. And I just wasn't. I just had dropped out of being first lady. I just dropped out of all of it. I was sick of it. And I got a call one day and someone said, Dr. Height is being honored from some organization and she wants you to introduce her. I said, well, I'm not doing it, so get somebody else. So they called me back the next day and they said, Dr. Height said that if you don't introduce her, she's not coming. So I was like, okay. So I went in and I introduced her and then, she just started pushing me to come out of myself and calm down because I just had enough. Everybody has those walls that they hit. So I would say Barbara Jordan and Daughtry Height to the very end. Those are the two women for me.
Well, I want to thank you for participating, Rycon. I do have one last question because you have talked about nothing new under the sun, but we've got an important election and we've got a phenomenal woman and all of you have done. I need you to give a message to everyone about this election and how important it is that we collectively and vocally and very loudly support our sister and this ticket. So just quickly, if you would, 1 to 2 minutes, give us a vision why and what we need to do.
I'm going to let you take that, Minyon.
Minyon?
Well, first of all, you always hear the hyperbole, this is the most important election of your lifetime. But I can probably say without any reservation, this is more than the most important election of your lifetime. This is the election that will define our country for the next 2 decades. And I think, I think about it in terms of it's really not about me, because I feel like I have enjoyed a good political career of just trying to move the ball, but it really is about my nieces and nephews and all of us that have children that will inherit now the debt. They will inherit this criminal justice system. So when I hear young people say, well, it doesn't really matter to me, it's not going to help me, I don't think they understand just how powerful that pen is when you stick it in a voting booth and you just decide to drop and say, I'm voting for this president or this vice president. And so I say, if you want criminal justice reform, vote about it. If you want healthcare, vote about it. If you want clean neighborhoods, you must vote about it. And you must understand that no matter what we do, what we say, this will be your future and it will be your children's future. And I say, vote about it. If you have never voted in your life, wake up like Snoop and say, I'm voting about it.
And can I just add one thing? And what has been hurting my heart are these young Black men out here saying they're not going to vote. They're going to vote for Trump. And I mean, it's stressful. And so I finally said to one of my friend's sons, who I've known since he was 6 years old, when he walked into the center and started talking crazy, beyond the fact that I looked at him and said, you sound like an idiot. I said to him, I say those things because he did sound like an idiot. I said, do you realize, and this is what I say to all young people in case they don't understand, and most people don't have the history. And as a political science professor and a history professor, I can tell you that of all of the things that we have fought and that have been given or allowed for us to have in this country, I mean, end of segregation, all of that, of all of those concessions, the one thing this country has refused to let us do is to vote. Mm-hmm. Consistently, if you pass the 15th Amendment, as soon as that 15th Amendment passed to give us the right to vote, they put in them black codes, and there went the grandfather clause and the literacy test and the poll test and the white primary and all of that. And then once that got undone by the 1965, Voting Rights Act, then they started doing all of the voter suppression that we're looking at now. And I look at these young black men and I say, do you understand? What is wrong with you? They don't want you to vote. Why? Why are you doing the one thing they want you to do? The one thing they want you to do. You're doing everything else wrong. You're doing all the things that they don't want you to do, and you having the ball, but they don't want you to vote. So if there's no other reason to vote, because they don't want you to. Because they know that if we ever got the message in our head and we got straight, then we would be an unstoppable force. Or as I look at them sometimes and say, Harriet Tubman said, and I quote, I would have saved a lot more slaves if they just knew they were slaves.
Wow.
What I'm saying to you is that you are a slave and you don't even know it because your mentality is one that is self-destructive. So I would always tell them, they don't want you to vote, so vote because they don't want you to. And vote for Trump. If you want to vote for Trump, you want to destroy yourself. If you want to talk to me about Trump letting out black rappers out of the front gate and he's bringing in 250,000 of y'all through the back gate, what is wrong with you? So, I just think I get real radical. What Minyon just said, they don't know about that. They don't understand that. I found that out. So you got to get with their language. They don't want you to vote. They're going to put you in jail if you don't. The police unions are supporting Trump. Come on, get some head, get something in your head. That's what I say.
But see, they see that as, because I deal with them, they see that as condemnation. And you got to keep in mind, Cora, and this is not for this particular forum, but you got to keep in mind, our people are confronted with so much. And then we are saying to them, we are trying to coax them into believing that this vote matters. When they had a president for 8 years who looked like them, who told them, who we rallied to the cause, but they didn't see a change. So some of it is not that they are disillusioned. They are jobless. They are, we have black on black. We have so many isms in it. And so I don't think they're ignorant. I think they lose hope. And I think our people lose hope. And I'm just on the side of, what's that beautiful line Leah has? It says, we're on the precipice of hopefulness and hopelessness. And that's where they are. And I'm not going to give up on them. Where there's life, there's hope. And I know that's me. I'm just not giving up. Because I know we're going to.
I also think, Cora, that, we spend a lot of time focusing on the presidency.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's hard for sis running the dry cleaning business on the street to really make the connection between the presidency and her day-to-day life. And I think we be more, at least I find that in my conversations, talking to people about their daily lives, what day your trash is going to get picked up, if it's going to get picked up, what day the street sweeper is coming through. What books are your kids reading in school? Are there 20 kids in a class or 8 kids in a class or 50? Some elected official is making those decisions. So if you don't want to care about the presidency,
right,
we can have that conversation. But I want you to go to vote for the person who's going to give your child air conditioning in their schools. So they're not. Books. And give them books and making sure that there's hot food in the school and they're not eating cheese sandwiches. Vote for that. Vote for getting your trash picked up twice a week and not once a month. Vote for those things that have an impact on your day-to-day life, because people are making decisions every single day in City Hall, in the State House, about what is directly impacting you. And if people can make that connection, you can drive it up to the presidency.
You got to connect it to their lives.
You have to connect it to their lives.
Exactly right. Our people got too many challenges. Too much. Folk just trying to get their kids through the park safely to get to the schoolhouse. They can't get, you taking me all up here about climate change. I can't hear about no recycling, no bags right now. I'm just trying to get my groceries that's not stale when I buy them. So I got all these other issues, and now you want me to be thinking about something all the way up here? I can't do it right now because I'm just trying to live. All right, sis. All right, brother. Then vote to live.
Yeah.
Vote for the council person. Vote for the assembly who's going to help you to
live
live.
About it.
Well, this is not this the reason
on the ballot, then vote for that too. But just get to the poll and vote for who's going to make your life better.
Right.
the reason why we can't have a 2-minute conversation on such an important question is because we believe in the right to vote. For over 244 years as a democracy, we have fought for this right. And if you think about it, 244 years, 189 of those 244 years, we had no right to vote.
That's right.
And we have struggled to maintain this right over the last 55 years since the passage of the Voting Rights Act. I try to tell everyone that if you want to have a say in the quality of your life and the future of your life, and all of our lives, you have to participate. You have to become part of how we make laws and how we go about enforcing those laws. So for me, the right to vote is the lifeblood of our democracy, and we should all participate. And for those who, that I have to make a more emotional appeal, I sometimes get personal. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, my dad, who's a war hero who fought for his country, came out with 4 Bronze Stars and a medal. And he sat and waited for an entire week for someone to rescue him. Vote as if your life depends on it. Make sure that you put somebody in office who will remember you in those storms. Mm-hmm. And now with this pandemic, with the number of people who are unemployed, have lost everything and losing their lives, vote as if your own life depends on it, because it might well.
Because it does.
It does.
Might well this year. So we have a lot to be thankful for. And for those of us who are a little bit more politically astute, think about it this way. By 2032, Blacks and Latinos will be the supermajority and more than 1/3 of our states. And by 2050, more than 2/3. So we have something to look forward to. We need to vote because there are people coming up and rising up, and we need to help usher in a new era of politics. So that's my view.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming to RideCon. I'd like to especially thank our host for Nothing New Under the Sun, Ms. Cora Masters-Berry, obviously Donna Brazile, Minyon Moore, and Leah Daughtry. Thank you so much for coming to RideCon. I'm really proud. Thank you for being honest and sharing. You do not have to be in the streets, but everybody, you do have to be in the struggle. I'm Munson Steed, and we want to thank you more for being here on Nothing New Under the Sun at RideCon. Thank you.
Thank you
for inviting us.
Thanks, everybody. Great.